Sign in on Taskmaster right now, and the dashboard is just empty. A nav bar with your email in it, a page that knows exactly who you are, and nothing whatsoever to do once you're there. No projects, no tasks, no button that does anything. Video 8 built the front door. Nobody's furnished the house behind it yet. That's today. We're building the actual product. Full create, read, update, delete for projects. Then the same 4 operations for tasks living inside those projects. Forms and server actions for writes, a server component for the first real data fetch, and every single query scoped to whoever's actually signed in. That last part matters more than it sounds like it should. The moment Taskmaster has more than one user, fetch project 14 and fetch project 14 that belongs to the signed-in user stop being the same query, and only one of them is safe to ship. By the end of this video, a signed-in user can create a project, see it appear on their dashboard, open it, add tasks to it, check them off, edit or delete anything they own, and get nothing back if they try any of that on a project that isn't theirs. Let's get into it. Why ownership is the whole design. Every query gets a where.userID. There's exactly one rule for the rest of this video. Every Prisma call that touches a project or a task, find, update, delete, all of it, filters by the signed-in user's ID, not just the record's own ID. Not as a courtesy check after the fact, as the query itself. A find unique where ID with no owner check will happily hand back someone else's project if they simply guess or increment an ID. A find first where ID, user ID, returns nothing at all for a record that exists but isn't yours, which is indistinguishable from that project never having existed. And that's exactly the response we want a stranger to get. Server components for reads, server actions for writes. The dashboard's project list is the first real use of a server component fetching from Prisma directly. No API route, no client-side loading state, no use effect. It runs on the server, on every request, and streams HTML straight to the browser already populated. Creating, editing, and deleting stay server actions, the same shape Video 8 established for sign-up and login. Create and read. Step 1. The Create Project Server Action App. Applage, Dashboard, Actions.ts. New, Project and Task Server Actions. Dashboard, Page.tsx. New Server Component, List Projects. Projects, Page.tsx. New, Single Project plus its tasks. Use server import Prisma from @libprisma. Import auth from @auth. Import revalidate path from Next.js. Export async function create project. Form data. Caught session is await auth. If not session user, return error not authenticated. Const name equals formdata.getName as string. Trim, return error, project name is required. Await prisma.project.create. Data, name, user ID, session user ID. Revalidate path, dashboard. Return success true. Session user ID is what makes this safe. It comes from the verified token, not from anything the client sent, so there's no field on the form a visitor could tamper with to create a project under someone else's account. Revalidate path tells Next.js the dashboard's cache data is now stale, so the server component below refetches, instead of showing a list that's missing the project we just made. Step 2. The dashboard as a server component. App @dashboard dashboard, dashboard page. TSX import, Prisma from @libprisma. Import auth from @auth. Import redirect from next navigation. Import create project from .actions. Export default async function dashboard page. Const session await auth. If session user redirect to login. Const projects await Prisma project find many, where user ID session user ID. Order by created at desk. Return mdiv. Form action create project. Input name, placeholder, new project name, required. Button type submit. Create. Button. All. Projects map p. href projects PID, p name. No fetch, no loading spinner, no client component at all here. This entire page runs on the server, queries Prisma directly with the query already scoped to user ID, and ships fully rendered HTML. The only client-side JavaScript on this page is whatever the form needs to call the server action, and that's handled for us. Note: Prisma project.findMany with where user ID is doing double duty. It's both the feature, show me my projects, and the security boundary, and only my projects. There's no separate authorization step to forget. Update and delete. Step 1. Update project ownership on the right path. 2. Export async function update project ID, string, form data. Const session await auth. If not session user return error, not authenticated. Const name equals form data.get name as string. Const result is await Prisma project.update many, where ID, project ID, user ID, session user ID, data. Name, if result count is 0, return error, project not found. Revalidate path project/project ID. Return success true. Update many instead of update on purpose. Update throws if the ID doesn't match a row at all, but we want the exact same outcome, whether the project doesn't exist, or it exists and just isn't ours. Result count tells us which case we're in, without ever revealing that the record exists for someone else. Step 2. Delete project, and what cascades with it. Export async function delete project ID string. Const session await auth. If not session user return error, not authenticated. Const result is await Prisma project.delete many, where ID, project ID, user ID, session user ID, data. If result count is 0, return error, project not found. Revalidate path/dashboard, return success true. Deleting a project that still has tasks under it only works cleanly because of one line sitting in the schema already. The task model's relation back to project. Model task, ID string, @ID, @default UUID. Title string, done boolean, @default false. Project ID, project relation fields, project ID, references ID, on delete cascade. Note, on delete. Cascade means Postgres itself deletes every task row tied to a project the moment that project is deleted. No orphan tasks, no separate cleanup query, and no way to forget to write one later. The same 4 operations, one level deeper. Tasks don't belong to a user directly. They belong to a project, which belongs to a user. So every task query has to prove ownership through that relationship, instead of checking user ID on the task row itself. Step 1. Create task, proving ownership through the parent. Export async function create task. Project ID string form data. Const session equals await auth. If not session equals user, return error, not authenticated. Const project equals await prisma.project.find first where ID, project ID, user ID, session user ID. If not project, return error, project not found. Const title equals form data.get title as string. If not title.trim, return error, task title is required. Await prisma.task.create, data, title, project ID, revalidate path, project/$project ID. Return success true. That find first before the create is the whole security model for every task action in this section. Confirm the parent project belongs to this user first, and only then touch anything underneath it. Skip that check, and a signed-in user could add tasks to or read, edit, delete tasks from a project that was never theirs. Step 2. Reading a project's tasks. App dashboard projects ID page.tsx. Export default async function project page params EID string. Const session equals await auth. If not session equals user, redirect to login. Const project equals await prisma.project.find first, where ID params ID user ID session user ID. Include tasks order by created at ask. If not project, not found. Return a div, h1 project.name, url.$project.tasks, map t title. Include tasks is dim. Pulls the whole task list in the same query as the ownership check. One round trip to Postgres, and it's structurally impossible to render a task list for a project the find first didn't already confirm belongs to this user. Step 3. Toggling and deleting a task. Export async function toggle task. Task ID string done boolean. Const session equals await auth. If not session equals user, return error, not authenticated. Const result equals await prisma.task update many, where ID task ID, project, user ID, session user ID. Data done. If result.count equals 0, return error, task not found. Return success true. Export async function delete task. Task ID string. If not session equals user, return error, not authenticated. Const result equals await prisma.task.delete many, where ID task ID, project, user ID, session user ID. If result.count equals 0, return error, task not found. return success true. Note, project user ID, session user ID, inside a task query is Prisma reaching across the relation to check the parent's owner in the same call. No second query, no moment where an unchecked task ID is trusted. Recap and call to action. Taskmaster does something now. Read, update, and delete for projects. The same 4 operations for tasks nested underneath them. A server component driving the dashboard's first real data fetch, and every single query, read or write, project or task, scope to the signed-in user, either directly with user ID or through the parent project's relation. In Video 10, we make it feel instant. Optimistic UI updates with Use Optimistic, so checking off a task or creating a project updates the screen before the server even responds, plus proper loading and error boundaries around the pages we built today.